let's get more centralized and focus on the Cowboys.
They're good.
Okay. How good? That's a loaded question. How good is this?
I'm going to go to analytics on you, actually.
Okay, that's fine. That's
They're
cool.
the second best team in football.
Okay, that's fine. And the other team is?
San Francisco.
Great. Glad that you said that.
San Francisco's a machine. I mean, look, and
this is not your allegiance to the Niners.
No.
Okay.
I am also a watch the tape guy. So I am the guy who's torn between the two masters here, because I will defend anybody who is using information and data to help their decision making. Be like, yes, that's smart. And we also watch the teams play football.
Yes.
The numbers and what I and you have seen match up on the 49ers. One of the fun little nerd stats where they just try to all encompass everything that's happened and put a number on your offense and your defense. It's called DVOA. Don't worry about it. That's not what it stands for. Just don't worry about it. Yeah. Says through 13 games or whatever that San Francisco is the 7th best team since they've had these numbers, which is like 30 years or 40 years. And the 6 in front of them won the Super Bowl. San Francisco is an all-time team. When you just say this is how good their offense is, their defense is, their special teams are, add it up, and they're, I believe, 2 spots ahead of the best 90s Cowboys team. So they're awesome. The Cowboys are awesome too. This year, the Cowboys are not to crunch numbers on it, but they're still definitely a top 3 offense this year. And as of last week, they were a top 3 defense. Boy, top 3 and top 3 is a good way to win a Super Bowl.
Does this quarterback, because there's been a lot of talk. You hear it on the national media all across the board, right? And I love how football is this fluid thing, right? Because earlier in the year, it was, same old Dak Prescott, not good enough, as Cam Newton would say, game manager. And then you saw kind of after the bye, you saw this thing just take off. And one of the things that it really stuck out to me was Aaron Rodgers, who unprovoked,
here we go,
not asked, in one of his segments began to talk about how Dak Prescott was his favorite quarterback in the league. And to me, that resonated with me because Aaron Rodgers spent all of his career under Mike McCarthy. Yeah. And learned the system. And, so what he sees in the offense that the Cowboys run today is a lot of what he's already been through. And now when you see him talk about Dak, he goes, he's my favorite quarterback to watch right now. When not asked about that, when not even being asked about Dak Prescott, that tells me that did Aaron Rodgers see kind of a little bit of himself saying, the light bulb went off. The light bulb, no. I know this. I know this mode right here. Whatever Super Saiyan mode he's in right now, I remember 10 years ago when it finally clicked for me, and this dude is doing some things right now that is pretty special. Has Dak come to that point now where we can say he's good enough to take us all the way?
Oh, for sure. Sure.
Like all the way.
Like, I think for years he's been good enough to win the Super Bowl, but I also think Tony Romo was, right? But it doesn't matter. You don't get to win the Super Bowl just because your quarterback's good enough to win the Super Bowl. Now, is your defense better than that defense? And can you win on the road 3 times in a row?
But there are some intangibles, though, right? Like, there are some things where I
think Dak's way different this year, and I think that there's a very tangible reason. And I've always thought Dak is a.
Are you going to tell us the tangible reason? Or are you
going
to keep it to yourself?
Oh, no, I'm going to tell you.
Oh, okay.
And because I think
they want to make sure we got the tangible reason.
Because they got I think they said it. I forgot what game it was on the broadcast where they were talking about Dak explaining how they're playing now and how he's playing the position, and it was like he wasn't explaining it, like he was preaching it. Like, I can't believe everyone else isn't doing this. You have to do this. It's how you get good. You'll be amazing. You have to do this, and it sounds so simple. That first hearing about it, I was just like, well, yeah, everybody counts their steps, and everybody does a 3-step drop or a 5-step drop, and then you're supposed to throw it. But I think it's been that easy, that they've married the scheme to Dak, where the things that he's doing, it's just that it's muscle memory. Where now he knows for a fact on every play that when this foot hits the ground, I'm throwing to him. And if that ain't right, that's cool because this foot's going to hit the ground and then I'm throwing to him. And if not, that's cool because then this foot hits the ground and I'm throwing to him. And if not, I'm seeing which A or B gap I can move through. The end.
Sound like what they're doing over in Santa Clara.
Yeah. It's just making the game as easy as you possibly can for a guy who was always good. And now the guy who was always good feels like he has the answers to the test on every single play. And I just think about all of the other offenses in football, and I'm like, how is that not always the thing? I know at the top of my 3-step drop I'm supposed to be throwing a slant, but if not, then I'm just going to start going, wee, and it's just like it should always be bang, 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 shoo.
I think sometimes we when you're around coaches and you've been in a couple systems, you realize like there's a lot of stubbornness in professional sports, in any sport. Like these coaches who are married to a certain system or thought process or a scheme, like they carry that with them as like, this is my skin.
And it's so dumb.
And it's like, change? Why would I change? You talked about Rod Manelli early on saying, so you will pass up a really good player, like a generational player, what we now know TJ Watt is, just because of some arm measurements?
No, not our measurements.
You know,
he played standing
up.
up.
He played standing up.
He didn't put his hand on the ground.
Right, so that's something that he's carried with him. Like that's been a part of every single team, defensive team that he's been able or allowed to build.
Right.
And it's flawed in every which way because it's like, but are we going to negate the productivity? Like, are we just completely negating the productivity at all? You know, and so you say that and you go like, how this is so simple. Why is everybody not doing it? And I think it's because of the stubbornness that we see a lot of times across the league.
Yeah, and I guess that it has to be an oversimplification, but just seeing them play and then seeing the way that Dak talks about it, he feels differently about the player he is. Like he feels like, oh, wow, this is it. This is how you quarterback. How did I not know? And he feels like this is so much different and like a cheat code. And now you're playing like an MVP candidate, so I'm not going to argue with him.
Is the window wide open for the Cowboys? Is it closing? Like, because there is an expiration on this, right? There comes a point in time where you talked about cheap labor, right?
Draft.
Like who's next, right? You essentially are about to have a quarterback that's due for a new deal.
Yep.
You're about to have to pay a dude who's going to be the highest paid defensive player in the league.
Number one wide receiver.
A number one wide receiver, and then you sprinkle in wherever else you want to add pieces to this mix.
Diggs got some money.
Is this a team right now that say, you know what, we got about a year, like this year has to be the year, or that window is closed? Because every single year, right, like the team that was on the cusp last year will get better, you hope, right? Like sooner or later, the Giants and Washington in the NFC East are going to get better. You think, you hope, maybe. But right, so like every single year you look at it and you say, all right, this clock is ticking for the Cowboys, and they've had the quarterback, they've had weapons, they've had coaches, they've had all the opportunities in the world, but they've come up short. How much longer do you believe the window is for the Cowboys?
If Dak keeps playing the way he has played in 2023, until he doesn't, but I think there are obviously wild cards in that, and I think the biggest wild card is you got to tell me, how does the offensive line work itself out in the next 2 years? Because just think, if Tyron retires and Zach retires, you have one good offensive lineman?
Yeah.
One? Tyler Smith? Bowser's okay. Steele's been pretty good before, but he isn't right now.
But that's been his career trajectory, right? It's up, it's down, it's up. It's good, it's bad, it's good, it's bad. You pay him, it's bad. Hopefully he gets back up to good.
But he's always, like, he's one of those guys that is, him and Michael Gallup were the guys that I firmly believe the reason they got paid, despite the fact that they blew out their knees, is if Garrett were still here, they'd be called the right kind of guy. Like, Steele and Gallup are first in, last out, work super hard. We like you. That's why you get paid, and that's why we got rid of Amari Cooper, because we don't like you. It's not about who's good. It's about do we like you. And so, I don't know, part of me, but hell, we're a long way removed now, but part of me is just like, oh, Steele, just coming off the ACL, he's not actually back. But hell, we should be back by now.
I gotta be honest
Duke
with you.
Manyweather, who works with some Cowboy offensive linemen, thinks they're teaching some things they shouldn't be teaching in the offensive line room, I believe. But their offensive line, you got to tell me, what does it look like in 2 years? Because I don't know.
2 years? What about in a year?
I would assume Zach plays another year of football.
Okay.
Gosh, on the top of my head, I actually don't know when Tyron's deal is up. I bet he's under contract again, but cuttable. But do you want to cut him the way he's playing now? Tyron's playing great football. You just never make him practice ever again. Because if you tell me that you're going to have Tyron on the field and Zach and Tyler,
but you know that you're not. But you know that you're going to miss Tyron for at least 4 to 5 games.
Hey, he's playing.
But in the time that he missed, right? What happened? You dropped the game to Arizona, which now essentially is the reason why you're probably going to be your wild card. And that's kind of my
Tommy DeVito can take down the after the Seahawks.
Okay.